Mr. Chairman, is Lyman hooked up now?
Yeah, are you in, Lyman?
No, I don't have the invite yet. Refreshing.
Is it sent, Paul?
Yeah, you see that from here, that email. Oh,
Okay. There you go.
is that the right one?
Correct. The email is sent. It might take a minute to get it refreshed.
We can start in the meantime if you want, Eric.
That sounds really good. Let's call the meeting to order at 3:06 in the afternoon PM on Monday, May 5th. In attendance in person are trustee Zerlo, board member Orcutt, myself, Eric Hummel, and on the phone, Lyman Chance. And in attendance, I'm sorry,
Craig Till.
and Betsy Menzel, president of Port Edwards Village Board, and Ben Martinson. Thank you. And on a line is Tammy Waters, and Tammy, I believe you are with Domtar, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Very much. And are you on the line? Okay, well, we'll continue and then we'll get who you are. That'll be great, because as long as you can hear, that's continue. Okay, the first order is public comments, and is there anybody that has a public comment that would be up to 3 minutes long about the agenda or any other matter before the board?
So one thing, Eric, I requested earlier that we have a time on the agenda to discuss how the various status of the properties are identified.
Yes.
So if you could have that for the agenda.
That sounds fine. So, hearing none about public comments, I'll just make a very quick comment. I owe everybody an apology for the lateness of our start and some of the technology issues. Paul, the intern for Port Edwards, has been kind enough to assist us. Thank you, Paul. And he has had some limited availability of equipment and so forth. So we thank you, Paul, for that. In addition, the all-inclusive documents that are supposed to be available for the meeting were not in the packet, and I apologize for that as well. I own that. The secretary is not here, or typically does that, and it's my bad that I didn't follow up because I made a bad assumption about the security to that. So we'll try to do the best we can without them. We do have before us the documents of the map of the proposed weed harvesting pilot for 2023. We have a copy of the NEPCO lake parcel definitions, and I think we got the use terms, and then more the minutes for the last meeting. So, long way of saying, yes, sir. Mr. Jeffrey.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I want you to know that even though the map and the things from Supervisor Workout do not don't appear on the agenda, they still can be legally inserted in the old business for both the.
Yep, thank you very much. Thank you, and we will certainly do that.
So Tammy, are you having a hard time hearing everybody or just Eric?
Actually, everybody. It's just like you're a long way away from the microphone. I don't know if everybody else is having a challenge or just me.
Oh, well, Eric's gonna come cozy up next to me.
Okay. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, does that help, Tammy?
Much better. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we'll, if that's okay with you, Dave, we'll put that into old business.
That's
and
fine.
Do that
Yep.
there.
Just wanted to make sure we had time to discuss.
Absolutely. So the approval of the minutes from 15 May 2023 are not available. Can we delay approving those till the next meeting? then, I mean, they were sent, I think, by email, but I think we ought to wait actually and allow people to have an opportunity to read that. So we'll delay that till next meeting. Item 6, discussion to confirm the parcels to be included in the district, so that we can send that off to the registrar per state statute. Lyman, you want to give us an update on that and where that stands right now?
Last week, Boz and I went through that in some detail. I know Boz went through it himself, parcel by parcel, and identified each parcel. I think was satisfied that all the parcels were properly identified. So I believe we are ready to submit the parcels to be recorded. And just to be clear, what gets recorded is the parcels that are included in the boundary of the district, not the status of the parcel, just is it in or not in the boundary. The only complicating factor is it appears, since it was last updated to today, one more parcel has changed hands that would need to be updated, but it's only one parcel to our knowledge, and the Register of Deeds would do a sweep for any other changes. But I believe we're ready to record the boundary, and I'm not aware of anybody that has any concerns with the parcels included in the boundary, short of this one sale that just happened. Any comments or questions? Did anybody else spend any time looking at it? It is
I guess, Lyman, you know, if what we're recording is the parcels, the important thing that's being recorded is the parcel ID. The ownership is probably secondary as long as we've got the ID numbers correct. That be appropriate?
That is correct. However, the parcel that was just sold was a single parcel that was divided into 3 new parcels.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, otherwise you are correct. All that gets recorded is the parcel number.
Thanks for the clarification. That explains that.
And second, there was also an additional change of ownership from the Pavlovsky Development Company to a private, to a couple of an additional lot. So I think one of the things we want to do is when we send this, Lyman, is also propose with Tammy a way to at least quarterly get updates on any changes in parcel ownership going forward. I think that would be helpful to keep us up to date on that. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, I don't know how she gets informed, I'll be honest, and I will ask her. I am assuming someone comes to her and has her record the new deed, and that's when she becomes aware. Often we will hear about them before that happens, by that way, but I will ask for the quarterly updates. Any changes so that we can try to keep up with those. And again, I didn't hear any objections to recording it, except I will make the one change that we talked about for the parcel that was provided. And
I will send you the second change. I think because we're using the parcels for other reasons, she is the official one that changes ownership of parcels, and that's where we go to look for our definitions of what kind of parcel it is. So I would recommend we use that as the determiner, because I could give you word of mouth of other things I think I know, but and then there's a lot of stuff I know I don't know. So I think we'll want to use her the Register of Deeds as the
that is the official record for the county. So.
Correct. So we'll
just a minor point, Eric. Sometimes if you go on the county GIS site, I don't know when that information gets recorded. That's another step in the process. We have historically used the GIS site. We will stop using that. We will begin using whatever we're informed by Tiffany Ringer as the parcels are updated quarterly.
Okay, thank you. Great. So there's no motion involved in that. It's more that we're going to go ahead and do what we said we were going to do before, but we've now gone back and looked at it again.
A minor point, Eric. I'll pay the $30 recording fee with expectation to get reimbursed when we get funded. There's a $30 cost.
Yeah, I'll hold that in abeyance, in terms of us paying you until we see how things turn out.
Okay.
Thank you. Item number 7, I'd like to discuss the special meeting coming up on June 23rd at 5 o'clock at the Wood County Park Pavilion Shelter. And let's talk a little bit about the setup and the products that are going to be involved in that. Do you want to go ahead, Lyman, too, and share your perspective on what the setup is?
Sure. The meeting is scheduled from 5 until 7. We have that shelter reserved all day. I plan on being there sometime early afternoon. I'm going to guess 1 o'clock. We have to set up our own tables and chairs. We're planning on setting up a projector in the room. We will have name tags available, and we will have extra copies of the voter certification document for people to fill out. And I've got at least a few people volunteered to help check in, fill out name tags, and collect the voter certificates. And so I think the facility, Jeff Manor went over and looked at the facility today. Again, other than setting up a couple of tables and chairs, it's pretty much ready to go. Oh, there is Wi-Fi in the facility. I'll verify that ahead of time as well. But I get access to the Wi-Fi. I'm a Solaris customer, and the Wi-Fi in that building is Solaris, and I know how to get Wi-Fi access. So we should have full Wi-Fi access. We should have projector, tables, chairs, people greeting, name tags. I think logistically we're ready. I think the only question is whether we want to use the, whatever you want to call that, the gizmo that's in the meeting room today, which gives the camera view and the speaker, or whether we just want to pass on that. But with Boz not being there, I wouldn't know. Maybe we could ask the intern if he could help with that, or we just pass and we don't use it. We use a computer speaker.
We want to use this. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, so this is one of the many things that the Port Edwards Village Administrator offered to provide, and we will double check that with the president of the board and so forth to see if that still stands as being available before the meeting, and we'll take that offline and do that.
I guess the one question, and I wasn't aware until Tammy made mention today, I wonder if people have always had a hard time hearing with this gizmo, or if we just don't have it turned on right, or.
Yeah, there may be, and this is an alternative Zoom site as well.
Okay.
Usually when I've been here and people can't hear, they let us know, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, just.
Thank you, though.
The quality today is great. At the moment, it's great, by the way. I'm having no trouble.
Yeah, we're all huddled around the mic.
So the quote products of the meeting, fundamental, the most critical piece is a acknowledgement and approval request to get a loan for $60,000 from the Port Edwards and Nakusa Bank to provide the activity that we have an exciting opportunity to do that many initial boards don't do, and that is to start doing some piloting of the harvesting machines and so forth, even before the first annual meeting. And that's the fundamental purpose, plus the aquatics plant study and lake plant management report that goes with it, that is required by DNR as well. So those are the fundamental things that we're asking to people to weigh in. I will mention that by state statute, you have to be in person and be acknowledged as a owner of the property. That's what the certification is, but you have to be in person in order to vote. I'm sorry, we can't let people do it on Zoom, but the state statute requires that. It also requires that regardless of how many lots one owns, an individual gets one vote per person. The products then, in addition to that, I think we have decided we want to make sure that we introduce the initial board members, realizing that at the annual meeting, there'll be a vote, vote on who the board members will be going forward who are not appointed. Just for memory, recollection's sake, the Wood County Board has one appointee, and that's Joe Zerflu. And Port Edwards has the second one, that's currently Boz Bowser.
Well, technically, I'm appointed by the county board as well.
Yeah, as was I and was Lyman. So you're one of the three that
Right.
are initially appointed and will be up for voting for permanent members at the annual meeting.
So one question, and I know that we discussed this at the last meeting. You know, we've got potential for $60,000 loan. And are we interested in offering an alternative to that, given that there's time for public comment? And people begin to look at the cost of this, and they're gonna have to vote. Recognize that we would like to be able to be using weed harvesting equipment. There's musts and wants. So we must get the lake management plan together. Round numbers, that's 20,000. 40,000 becomes somewhat of a want.
15,000.
Well, but you know, we have to run the business, set up email.
Correct.
So we need 20. We would like to have 60, and I think somehow we need to project that to the folks that are in attendance and the why. But when I start looking at chapter 33, start reading about taking out a loan, some of the things we discussed about how we're gonna pay back the loan may or may not be in accordance with what the code requires. It's different than how we assess the values for the normal funding of the lake distance. When you get into borrowing, it says the district shall levy an annual irrepealable tax to pay the principal and interest of indebtedness incurred under subs 1 and 2, which is taking out the loan. District shall levy this tax without limitation as to the rate or amount on all taxable property. So it doesn't allow for. So I think we need to
Doesn't
have
allow for what?
for having an exemption. Okay, it says all property gets a tax levied. So not being a lawyer, I think we need someone to do a legal review before we promise to folks how we're gonna pay this back.
Yep, great. We will double check that for sure. Thank you.
So that's for the record, Lyman, that's 33.31 parens 3.
I guess, Joe, are you okay? I'm asking Joe Zerflu, are you okay if I approach the Port Edwards attorney directly on this? That's typically what we have agreed to use for legal advice right now, was to use the Port Edwards. There's a Port Edwards attorney assigned to NEPCO Lake, and I forget his name.
Brian Formella, I do believe I can get that information and a contact number for you.
I think I have his info. We've spoken to him previously, Joe.
He would be the one because he has been involved with district boards and formation of districts around lakes before and other places in the area. So
Yeah.
he'd be the contact person to go to.
Yeah, my main concern, Lyman, is the term all.
So as a chair, I'm going to suggest that I also be on that call.
Okay.
So those are the fundamental two products. Will we offer an alternative? We actually had considered charging a fee for a part of the year. The challenge with that is, even if people wanted to do that, two things would happen. One is they'd be assessed a fee in 2023, probably in August. And then in January, they're gonna be assessed a second fee, and that to me is you're gonna, as a parcel owner, gosh, I'm gonna get charged, and then I'm gonna get charged again, and I haven't seen anything
Right.
that you guys have done. So I think that's a non-starter, probably. And second, we wouldn't get the money until after our payment was due on several other things. So I want to pull back from offering that as a solution, because I just don't think it's a workable, one, for the optics of it, and two, for the fact that when we need the money, we won't have the money available even if we did it that way.
That's where we left it after last meeting.
Right, no, you didn't,
gonna be a little, but I wanted to ask you, Dave, is there anything in there that you read under that chapter 33, I think it is, that would prohibit, I may have not understood you totally, us from borrowing money?
No,
to get
no,
started?
no, the first section, which is 33.311, says every district may borrow money and use for financial method.
And I think that's gonna be easier to swallow
Right.
than the double whammy.
Right.
Yep, I
The
do too.
repayment, however, we talk about having exempted properties, so Domtar's exempt, the developer's exempt, there's some other folks, based on some discussion, are exempt. For purposes of paying back the loan, the way I'm reading the code, all properties have to have some tax levied on them to pay back the loan.
So therefore, we
So we need to
not
be,
have exempt properties.
for purposes of the loan.
I think for,
So we need to make sure that we understand that before before that meeting.
And that's, Lyman can be contacting with.
yeah, and I think
Right.
the question is, all properties, does that mean all properties that will be assessed fees? Or does that count for all properties on the lake? And so that's what we'll ask going forward.
Yeah, I think the question is, what does the term taxable property mean?
Well, all of the properties are, yes.
Yeah, I think we
What's
have
a
enough to
taxable-
ask the question.
Right.
Yeah, we'll ask. I can tell you in prior discussions with Eric Olson, we have a wide latitude how to decide how to tax the parcel owners. It's not prescribed as based on valuation. It's not described based on fee. We have wide latitude in doing that. We'll validate that though, Dave.
And
I
Olson,
think
Olson
it's-
is just so everybody on the call knows who is Olson.
Eric Olson is I'll call him the state expert with UW Stevens Point. He is pretty much the owner of the guidelines related to lake districts and was a strong advisor during the formative time of the Lake District. He is the top expert in the state on lake districts, as far as I know. Let me put it that way. I think he's an employee of UW Stevens Point.
I believe you're correct. He was the one that was at the training session.
Correct. He did the training, exactly.
I just wanted, for folks on the call who weren't familiar with him, I wanted to make sure.
Great point.
So those are the products. I think the third product is to allow the opportunity for those on the Zoom as well as in person to raise any question that they want to about the Lake District, about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and so forth. And this is the first opportunity that people have the board present for them to interact with. And so in addition to the comments about the matter before them, which is the voting on the loan, I'm also advocating that we have some time to allow them to ask any question that they want.
So back to the questions on the prep. Lyman, are you gonna get some 3x5 cards available for folks to write their question, name and address on? Because that was one of the things that we required in the setup.
I have them. I guess that's a question whether we want to take them in writing or we just want to take them with a show of hands.
Well, what we put in the notification is speakers are asked to submit a card to the secretary with the board providing their name and address and the topic of discussion. I don't think it has to have the whole question. I think what Boz is looking for is who they are and what their address is, probably to make things a little easier for him for writing stuff down. I'm familiar with other public meetings where this is done, where they use it for restriction. I don't think that's the intent. I think Boz's intent with this was just be able to have the name and the address and what they wanted to talk about, so we have some identifier.
I have a 3x5 card. We can administer it however we choose.
And we'll also find a way to have the people on Zoom be able to, on the chat part or whatever,
Yep.
acknowledge that they have a question and identify themselves as well. Okay, that's an update. Nothing to have a motion on that.
Hey, Eric, I have one comment. If you look at the agenda, we don't need to decide this. You don't need to decide this today. The vote happens to be rather late in the agenda. And as opposed to in close proximity to when we explain the loan. And we just may want to consider moving that vote further ahead in the agenda. It's a suggestion.
I would agree with you, Lyman. We explain the potential loan we allow them to vote shortly after that, because there are folks that may not want to hang around for another hour to hear the rest of it. They're just there to voice their opinion on the loan.
Correct.
And it's also fresh in their mind what we discussed on the loan, and we don't have to rehash it again when we get to the vote.
I will look at the draft, and I know it was sent out this way. We have an opportunity to
Change
make
the
those
order.
changes, and I think for purposes of continuity as well, that ought to happen. The voting on that ought to happen very close to when the use of the fees is presented.
Joe, any concern with doing that?
Oh,
Okay.
not at all.
All right, I'm going to move to new business, discussion on the wheat harvesting operations for 2023. And I'd like to set that up by again, reminding people that on the initial board, the must-haves for the initial board to deliver is a budget for the annual meeting and the day-to-day operations up until the point of the annual meeting. Because we have the probability or the expectation that 2 harvesters are going to be donated to Port Edwards, and Port Edwards would donate to the Lake District after the annual meeting. And there's an opportunity to test out the harvesters this year, which I think many residents, when they hear that, are pretty excited about seeing the machines actually on the lake again after 4 years of doing nothing. So what we've done is put together what it's going to take to have the harvesters ready to run, and then a pilot process that is in place to test out the machines and to cut some weeds in and around the lake, and we'll talk about that in detail right now. So Lyman, do you want to talk about the weed harvester operations from your angle?
Did you make other handouts of the use of funds of the loan and the harvesting map, Eric? Is that available to people in the room?
The use of the funds is not.
Use of the funds is not. I think. I don't know if I can share that. You may have to give me permission to share. I am at a loss. Oh, here we go. Share screen. Let's see if it lets me. So is our intern still there? He has to allow me to share.
Yeah. Did you request it yet?
I did.
So down at that green at the bottom.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing. So it's something in a setup.
Okay.
Now it seems to be allowing me. Now give me a second. I got to find that document, which will take me a second. I got too many documents open, which I'm apologizing for. Nice. It's called use of funds. I just got to find it here. Well, I'm going to open it again. Give me a moment.
I just sent it to Joe.
Okay, now I ought to be able to share it. Nothing's ever easy. Sorry, Eric, give me a moment. Something for this. There it is. Tell me if you can see that. Oh, and this is the wrong one. Sorry. Let me unshare that and try again. That's an old version. It hits the question that you raised earlier, Dave, of where the funds are going here. I think it's an important topic, and this is the easiest way to explain it. And it's the same thing that we're planning on explaining at that meeting. Well, nothing's ever easy. Sorry, I'm gonna have to pull it out of an email. I don't know where the heck this went. Oh, I know. I'm going back and forth between my personal email and the new district email, and I am trying to swing everything over to the district email. So give me a moment. Unfortunate we didn't get it copied. That's okay. We will get through this here. Sent mail. Well, I'm not finding it, so I'm going to talk through it. Apologize, guys. I broke this file. If I'm able to pull it up while we're talking here, I don't want to waste everybody's time here while I'm on a hunt.
One that he created.
There was 3 buckets of funds that I broke our $60,000 spend into. I'm only going to talk about one of the 3. The 3 buckets are weed harvesting, a second category that I call compliance, and a third category that I call administrative. Compliance, by the way, is the lake management plan and the aquatic species survey that we are required to complete before we're going to get a permit from the DNR next year, by the way. Under the weed harvesting, the largest single expense is the $22,000 required to repair the current machines. Those repairs are planned for 1 week from today, beginning 1 week from today. Roughly the weed harvesting cost of the 60 is about 40 if you include the 22,000 in repairs. 22,000 in repairs and roughly 20,000 in operating cost. The operating cost is 1 summer helper, renting a pickup truck, renting a trailer, fuel and insurance, and a small fee to dispose of the weeds at the Wisconsin Rapids compost sites. So if you talk about weed harvesting, we developed a simplified map that we intend to submit to the DNR of what we're calling trial weed harvesting. And I think it's very important that we explain to people and residents that this is not intended to be a full year of weed harvesting on the lake. It is our year to learn how to operate the machines, how fast do they operate, how fast do they fill with weeds, how long does it take to move the machines, to unload the machines, haul the waste to a disposal site, basically get a start at learning this year, verify the machines are operational, but certainly this is not meant to be a full year of weed harvesting. I think you all do have the map that was there, and that is intended to be a simplified map showing areas that we are considering harvesting. And let me say that that will need to be validated. We are required to keep the harvesters with the paddle wheels in 3 feet, above 3 feet of water on the harvesting wheels. And it's very difficult on a topographic map to determine whether the green area shown on that map will meet those minimum depth requirements. But the intent is we will try to cut channels along the shoreline for people to gain access to the lake. And we will try to cut channels along the recreational area in the center of the lake to keep the recreation areas open and pick up floating weeds in general throughout the lake as they might be dislodged. Again, it is meant to be a trial with 1 operator. The single operator would tentatively cut 2 days a week on the west side, two days a week on the east side, and we will get as much done as we can with 1 operator and learn how to operate the machines, the hauling, the pickup truck, and the trailers. Last point I want to make, we gave a lot of review to the various weed hauling options. At one point, we thought Port Edwards might haul weeds. Based on the quantity of weeds that we're hauling, we've agreed we don't think that's viable for Port Edwards. And we think the most cost-effective way for us to haul weeds is to use a pickup truck with either a dump trailer or a conveyorized weed trailer that we tow behind the pickup truck. That trailer backs into the water, the weed harvester dumps directly into the trailer, and then the pickup truck hauls that trailer to an offsite and either hydraulically dumps it, or there's a conveyorized trailer where the conveyor offloads the weeds off the trailer. If that operation is successful this summer, and we believe it will be, our intent would be to purchase a pickup truck and a trailer for 2024. And not to confuse matters, but that would require another loan in 2024 to purchase a trailer and a pickup truck. This summer, we intend to rent a pickup truck, rent the trailer, and validate that process is the most cost effective. And I will add that the pickup truck and the weed hauling trailers is the approach that Tri-Lakes uses on their much larger weed operation than we have. By the way, they have 7 weed harvesters, 2 pickup trucks, and 2 hauling trailers on Tri-Lakes. So anyhow, 42 of our $60,000 that we're spending this year is going to repairing machines and weed harvesting. The balance is either compliance or some administrative costs, meetings, website, etc. A bunch of small items. Questions or comments on that? Questions on the map, if you have the map in front of you.
The only question is, when we get done with the meeting, is, I know Boz isn't here to defend himself. Is someone gonna distribute this out to the rest of the board?
I will guarantee that I will do it myself.
Okay,
Just a comment too, you can see that it covers, what we'd like to do is, for optics sake, as well as for experimenting sake, is to get near as many of the properties, particularly the homeowners, as we possibly can this year, so that they see that, geez, the harvesters do work and so forth. And there are places along the way to cut lanes then through the weeds that we're not cutting into the middle of the lake where it's deeper, and people that have more recreational kinds of opportunities with boats and so forth can get to the deeper water that way. So that was the purpose of that. When I talked to the DNR about the process, they recommended that we send them this map ahead of time before we send in the application. So if there was any changes, we could make the changes before the application was sent. Then when the application gets sent, it's pro forma that it gets done. We did send it in, and Lyman, I think you heard the results were the map itself looked fine, but added the piece about cutting weeds that has to have 3 feet or so between that and
The paddle wheel.
the paddle wheels.
Yeah, basically, there was no concerns with this trial map. Again, that other than validate that we'll have to do this based on whatever you want to call it, actually going out on the lake with a boat with a depth finder and verifying where we have roughly 5 feet of water. And obviously we can't cut where there's less than about 5 feet of water. Somewhere between 4 and 5 feet of water is our limitation. So, but they understand that, and they're like, hey, that they get the intent is the areas in green. If we're lucky, we will cut 2 or 3 times this summer. So it's not like we're going to be cutting them every week, the entire lake, where we'll do it a few times over the summer. And the permit is rather vague in terms of what we're allowed to cut and not cut. Yes, we have to submit this map, but it's more intended to be a guideline. And it's something, this shows something like 20 acres that we would cut in total over the whole summer. Next summer, we would intend to cut far more than this.
So quickly here, and sorry to interrupt. So more technical issues, of course. I have to shut this down real quick, and I'm going to resend them the invites just because there's some conflict with